Friends, we are going to continue about the country Hong Kong. We spoke about Hong Kong yesterday, and this is a part 2. We might do a part 3. I'm not too sure. If we can't fit in everything today, we will do a part 3. So we spoke about the earlier part of the previous century beforehand, of the 19th century. We looked at some of the Sassoon family, about the greatness with regard to them. Especially, we ended up speaking about Reuben Sassoon and Frederick David Sassoon towards the end. Many of these people were very famous in British India and would make their marks in Hong Kong and definitely in England also. And let's explore a bit more with regards to history and the first half of the 20th century. We know by the start of the 20th century, I think there was as many as 100, or you could say as only 165 Jews officially lived in Hong Kong. The heyday, let's say, of the Jewish community of Hong Kong came under the rule of someone named Matthew Nathan. He was, I think, leader between 1904 to 1907. And the only Jewish governor of the colony, he happened to be, this Matthew Nathan. Under his governance, the Jewish cemetery was expanded and the construction of the railway between Kowloon and Canton began. The main street of Kowloon was named the Nathan Road in his honor. So he'll have prestige and, let's just say, remembrances for him. I think it was come up the early 1920s, the mid-1930s. There was at that point in time an outflow of Jewish businessmen to a rapidly, let's say, developing Shanghai. And the number of the Jewish community would then, because of that, will drop below 100. So it's going to reduce, obviously, very, very small community. As before, obviously, Sephardim would, let's say, predominate the country in and of itself. But I think there was a huge influx of the refugees from Eastern Europe. The balance would then begin to change now more towards Ashkenazi community at that stage in time. So there will be a, let's just say, you can see how tiny the community was, but obviously there was a lot of affluence in it. I think in the first half of the 20th century, the brothers Jacob Elias Sassoon and Edward Elias Sassoon, I think Edward lived between 1853 to 1942, along with their relative, someone named Edward Schelling, were the most influential figures in the Jewish community of Hong Kong, which is very interesting. Now, Mr. Schelling, who was also a nephew of Elias David Sassoon, started to work as a manager in Hong Kong branch of David Sassoon and Co. and later became a chairman of the Hong Kong and Shanghai Banking Corporation. I think this was between the years 1912 to 1913. As well, he was a director of Hong Kong Tramways, Hong Kong Land and Hong Kong Kowloon Wharf and Godown Company. He was also a member of the advisory committees of China Sugar Company's refining and Hong Kong Fire Insurance and Canton Insurance Society. In addition to his commercial activities, he was involved in public affairs of justice of the peace, as a justice of the peace, a member of the Legislative Council of Hong Kong from 1913 to 1918, as well as, I believe, a member of the committees of the Hong Kong General Chamber of Commerce, so the House of Sailors, head of the Financial Committee of Alice Ho Meung Ling, near the Seoul Hospital, and the Council of the Ohel Leah Synagogue and Hong Kong University Council. Now, I think Mr. Schelling passed away on the 8th of December 1928. Maybe we'll speak about him in a couple of minutes, a bit more in depth over here, which is very interesting. So, yeah, there was also another key family which we spoke about in the previous class, the Kaduri family. They would, let's say, were like in some form competing with the Sassoons within regards to like prestige. In the earliest 20th century, a member of the, I think it was the Kaduri family, someone named Eliezer Silas, he lived between 1867 to 1944, was becoming the new leader of Hong Kong's Jewish community as the Sassoons would focus a shift to Shanghai and Britain. He changed his name to Eliezer Silas Kelly, and later to Sir Ellie in Hong Kong, to appease the British elite. I think it was the height of his power. He, along with his brother Ellis, I think this was between the years 1865 to 1922, they controlled the stakes in the China Light and Power Company, the Hong Kong and Shanghai Banking Corporation, like we spoke about in the previous class, the Star Ferry, the textile mills and rubber plantations. I think, and they owned, I think at that point in time, extensive real estate a hotel company in Hong Kong, today known as, I think, the Hong Kong and Shanghai Hotels. I think come on 1928, Eli Kaduri would open a very important popular hotel in the colony near Kowloon Station. I think it was going to be 6 floors in of its own in a Peninsula Hotel. And come on 1905, there will be the establishment of a club, a social club, near the synagogue of Ohel. And the club would permit the Sephardim and Ashkenazim to meet, let's say, in a more inclusive place over there. I think it was come on 1937, Jewish refugees, mostly wealthy with British American passports from Shanghai, from Tianjin, and I think Harbin, fled their hardships of the Japanese occupation and they will swarm towards Hong Kong, along with some Jews from Europe who will flee Nazi Germany. And the composition of the newcomers was, let's say, very, very diverse. There was waves of refugees from Austria, from Russia, from Germany, from Poland, from the Czechoslovakia, from some were Baghdadi, also from Iraq. So the Hong Kong Society of Jewish Refugees was created to accommodate them. So it will become now a very diverse Hong Kong. Anyone tuning in live, please subscribe to our channel. We're a community here. We've got fantastic content over here. So please join and subscribe. I've got fantastic content over here. And happy Hanukkah to everybody over here from Israel. Okay, let's speak a bit more about Mr. Edward Shelim. He lived between 1869 to 1928. Obviously an English Jewish businessman in Hong Kong. He was born actually in Sussex in England to Ezekiel Shelim and Rebecca Sassoon, the daughter of famous David Sassoon. He joined his grandfather's business, David Sassoon & Co., and was one of the oldest trading houses in Hong Kong, and I believe was a manager of the Hong Kong branch of the firm. He was also chairman of the Hong Kong and Shanghai Banking Corporation, I believe, and in 1908 and 1912, and he served as a director of the bank for many years, director of Hong Kong Tramways, the Hong Kong Land Investment Agency & Co., the Hong Kong Land Reclamation Company, the Central Estates, the Hong Kong and Kowloon Wharf and Gideon & Co., and he was a member of the consulting committee of the China Refining Company, as we mentioned about before. And I think he was also the Hong Kong Fire Insurance and the Canton Insurance Office, also respectively, which is very, very interesting. Obviously, you can see the prominent positions he has. We said that he was a member of the Shanghai Municipal Council in 1898. This was, and he was a member of the Shanghai Chamber of Commerce. And I think while he was living in Hong Kong, he was made Justice of Peace and appointed an unofficial member of the Legislative Council of Hong Kong. And I think it was between 1913 to 1918. He was also elected a member of the Licensing Board, and he served on the committee of the Hong Kong General Chamber of Commerce and the Sailors' House, and was chairman of the Financial Committee of the Alice Memorial Hospital. And he was also the president of the Ohel Synagogue and a member of the court of the University of Hong Kong. I think Mr. Shelim would retire in 1918 from the manager of David Sassoon and Co. And he was succeeded by A.H. Compton, and he would live in Shanghai for a short period after retirement and then settled in England. And I think he passed away at 59 years of age. And I think they say that it was on 7th of December 1928 while he was riding his horse at Devil's Dyke in Brighton. I think that's when he sadly passed away. He was 59 years of age, and reported over, he left a Hong Kong estate of $539,000 and 100, and in England £53,000, 165. That's a huge sum of money we're talking about in 1928. Massive. And very interesting. I think he got married to a woman named Miss Howard. She was a daughter of another former manager of the company and had a daughter named Luna Eril Valera. So that's what's reported over. This is Mr. Shelim or something we have to point out within regards to him, friends over here. Anyone tuning in live, please subscribe to the channel and join our community. And we're nearing 8,000 subscribers, and we're recording this here during the time period of the Jewish festival of Hanukkah. We're exploring the history of the Jewish community of Hong Kong. So everyone, if you're new on the channel, welcome and enjoy. Okay, let's speak about Japanese occupation. And I think it was before the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor, there was still some context between the Shanghai ghetto and Hong Kong. But after, let's say, there was this attack, the wealthy Baghdadi Jews of Shanghai, many of whom actually had British citizenship, were interned. And then, I think, come June 1940, the British authorities abruptly announced the evacuation of women and children, off the island to Australia, due to, I think, there was a threatening of a Japanese invasion. And the evacuations quickly turned into highly contentious matter and became riddled with, let's say, racial discrimination at a point in time. Now, when the women of Hong Kong wanted to leave, they learned, let's say, about the British ancestry in themselves, as the Australian government requested, and they were allowed to leave. And I think, however, some non-European women managed to board the evacuation ships. However, they were again separated and to stop over, I think, in the area of Manila, if I'm not mistaken, and then they were sent back to Hong Kong. I think there were Jewish eyewitnesses, and they said that some of the ships were leaving, half empty, and the government maintained its silence. Now, come on, 7th of December 1941, the Japanese army invaded Hong Kong, and the city surrendered on the 25th of December. They were allied with nationals, including many members of the Jewish community. They were sent to civilian prison of war camps in Stanley. I think, for example, Morris Abraham Cohen and Eli Kadori, their families were imprisoned, while those who fought with the military in defense of Hong Kong were imprisoned in a military camp at Sham Shui Po. Inside the camp, some wealthy Jews managed to get certain camp privileges. For example, one wealthy Jewish family in, I think, Stanley, had one of the best rooms in the camp, and later managed to get, let's say, somehow to Shanghai. And the camps were also negative Jewish stereotypes. The Jewish people were associated with the black market. This was reported over here. Just using this Wikipedia as a source within regards to this. I think it was during the Japanese occupation, Ohelea Synagogue was used as a warehouse, and the Jewish club was looted. After the war, some of the local Jews who had managed to escape Hong Kong returned, and in 1949, I think the previously destroyed Jewish club was restored. Now there will be another wave of Jewish refugees. They followed from Europe. I think this was in, let's say, through the ports of Mumbai, Singapore, and Hong Kong to Shanghai, where after the Japanese occupation, I think visas were still not required for Europeans, in contrast to the Jewish refugees who the British colonial authorities did not allow to disembark in their ports. Let's explore a bit we're going to explore in due course a bit within regards to the second half of the 20th century. Let's speak about the famous figures, including Sir Eliezer Eli Silas Kadori. Who was he? He, I think, lived between 1867, I think, till 1944. He was a Baghdadi-born Jewish businessman, a philanthropist, also active in Shanghai and Hong Kong, and a member of the wealthy Kadori family that had large business interests in the Far East. Now, his family were originally from Iraq, from Baghdad, who later migrated to Bombay on the British Raj in the late 19th century. His brother was someone named Sir Ellis Kadori, and his sons were Sir Lawrence Kadori and Sir Horace Kadori. Also, so you can see a lot of these people were noblemen in Britain 100 years ago. They had like titles over there. Over here. So who was he? Obviously, we're going to see. He was originally, his family were Iraqi Jews from Baghdad, who later immigrated to the British Raj of Bombay. And in the late 19th century, his brother was Sir Ellis Kadori, and his sons were Sir Lawrence and Sir Horace, as I mentioned before. They arrived in Shanghai, Bombay, in 1880 as an employee of the Baghdadi Jewish firm of David Sassoon and Sons. Within a few years, and say there was an accumulated large sums of money and had gone into businesses on his own account, let's say with companies in both Shanghai and Hong Kong. He became the largest shareholder when China Light and Power was restructured in the early 20th century. Over the next 2 decades, the Kadori brothers made their fortunes, achieving success in banking, rubber plantations, electric power, utilities, and real estate. And let's say they gained a major shareholding in Hong Kong Hotels Limited. Now, Mr. Kadoorie was made an honorary Knight Commander of the Order of the British Empire in 1926 birthday honours. He was given the Order of the Brilliant Jade by the Chinese government, and he became a neutralised British citizen the following year. I think come on 1942, Mr. Kadoorie was taken from his home to Shanghai and interred in a Japanese prison camp for foreign civilians, and he died in prison on the February the 8th, 1944. You can see the anti-Semitism over there. Now, Sir Eli Kadoorie's grave, I believe, and that of his wife, Laura, Lady Kadoorie, are located, I think, on Song Kuining Memorial Park, near the Hongai Road, I think, in Shanghai. And I think it's currently accessible to visitors, if I'm not mistaken. This is what was chronicled recently. And there's are amongst only 4 tombstones, Jewish tombstones in Shanghai, which remained intact and were not destroyed during the Cultural Revolution. That's reported over here. So very, very interesting. I think he had 3 sons. I think Lawrence Kadoorie passed away in 1993, if I'm not mistaken, and Horace Kadoorie passed away in 1995. Okay, very interesting. Let's speak about Morris Abraham Cohen, who was also known as Mosaic Abraham Miexin. Also, he was also better known as Two Gun Cohen. That was his nickname. Let's explore a bit within regards to him. Now, he was in Hong Kong. He was a Polish-born British and Canadian adventurer of Jewish origin who became, let's say, an aide-de-camp to Sun Yat-sen and a major general in the Chinese National Revolution Army. He came from a religious Jewish family from Radzanau in the Congress of Poland. He was born on the 3rd of August 1887. His father was someone named Joseph Leib Miadzin, and I think he was actually a wheelwright by profession. And his mother was Scheindel Lipschitz, and in 1889 the family will emigrate to England and settle in East London, where I think Joseph worked in a textile factory. They changed their apparently name to an easier to pronounce Cohen, so that will be there. So I don't know if they were Kohanim by birth in of itself. And Abraham went by Morris and Moish, apparently. So Mr. Cohen, he loved the theatres, the streets, the markets, the foods, apparently the boxing arenas also in the British capital, more than he did, let's say, the Jewish. Apparently he learned in the Jewish Free School, JFS also, another interesting tidbit over there. And I think in April 1900, he was arrested as a suspect of attempting to pickpocket. Remember, this could have been anti-Semitically accused also. I think a magistrate sent him to Hayes Industrial Home, his school, an institution set by the likes of Lord Rothschild to take care for and train various different Jewish lads. That's what they say. He was, I think, released in 1905, but this was an educational place. And Mr. Morris, at a young age, would go to Western Canada with the hope that the fresh air and open hands of the New World would, let's say, help him in his ways, let's just say, over there at that point in time. I don't know if any of this was true within regards to him. It's chronicled over here in Wikipedia, so they bring sources over here. Now, I think Mr. Cohen initially worked on a farm near Whitewood in Canada, in Saskatchewan. He tilled the land over there, he tended livestock, and he learned to shoot a gun and played cards. He did that for a year and then started wandering through the western provinces. He made a living as a carnival banker. He was also a gambler. He was a card shop, a pickpocket, and a real estate broker, and reported over, very interesting. So obviously he was very adventurous, seemingly, this man from Hong Kong. It reports that he would end up in jail also in Canada. And he was, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I don't know what the thing was. So Mr. Cohen also became friendly with Chinese exiles over there who had come back to work with Canadian Pacific Railways. He loved the camaraderie and the food. And I think in Saskatoon, he came to the aid of a Chinese restaurant owner who was being robbed, so he helped people also use his, let's say, strength and adventurousness. Let's say Cohen's trainings in alleyways of London came in handy, and he apparently one time was reported a thief would come, and he was able to disarm him and stuff like that. The Chinese welcomed Mr. Cohen into their fold, and he would eventually be invited to join the Tong Mikyu Sun Yat sen's anti-Manchu organization. Now, Mr. Cohen became an advocate for Chinese expatriates and learned the teachings of the Sun Yat-sen. And Maurice Cohen soon moved to the capital of Edmonton in the neighboring province of Alberta. And there he became a manager of one of the provincial capital leading real estate agencies and was appointed on the personal recommendation of the Attorney General, Sir Charles Wilson Cross, to serve the province as Commissioner of Oaths, an appointment offered only to fit and proper persons, as was described over here. And he used his position actually to assist Chinese immigrants in becoming neutralized over here. Anyone tuning in live, we're exploring the history of the Hong Kong Jewish community, the early years over here. And we happen to be speaking about famous figures of that specific time. A lot more can be said over Mr. Cohen. He will become very, very affluent at the end. I'll recommend everyone to research about his history. Let's go back towards the second half of the 20th century of the country, Hong Kong, over here, on the special edition. Explore more with regards to it. Now, I think in the second half of the 20th century, the most prominent representatives of the Jewish community in Hong Kong was someone named Lawrence Kadoorie, as mentioned before. He lived between 1899 to 1993. And Horace Kadoorie, he lived between 1902 to 1995. Now, the sons of Eli Kadoorie, they were partners in the family business and well-known philanthropists. After the war, they revived the China Light and Power Company and the Peninsula House and formed Hong Kong and Shanghai hotels. In addition, the brothers became shareholders of Textile Enterprises, the Star Ferry Company, and the Peak Tram cable car leading to Victoria Peak. And Mr. Lawrence also served on the board of directors of the Hong Kong and Shanghai Banking Corporation. Lawrence Kadoorie was a member of the legislative and executive councils of Hong Kong in the 1950s. And come on 1962, I think Lawrence and Horace Kadoorie received the Roman Magsaysay Award, the Asian analog of the Nobel Prize he would actually receive. And Lawrence Kadoorie would receive the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire in 1970, and he would be made a Knight Bachelor also, so very prominent accolades, let's just say, he would get over there in that point in time. And he was made a Baron of Philanthropy in 1981, and he became a life peer and was the first person born in Hong Kong to become a member of the UK House of Lords. So you can see various different importances that they would get. Let's go back a little bit. I think it was in 1951, Lawrence and Horace Kadoorie, they founded the Kadoorie Agricultural Aid Association to provide trading and loans for local farmers. I think the association would become a successful business model and revitalized new territories. 5 years later, they established an experimental farm and botanical garden, and which eventually developed into one of the world's 20 top botanical gardens. I believe there were 250 Jews in Hong Kong. Half of them were Ashkenazic, half Sephardic in 1954. And the number would drop to 230 in 1959, and it would drop even further to 200 in 1968. Then by that stage, the majority were Ashkenazic. And in 1974, according to combined lists of the Ohel Leah Synagogue and the Jewish Club, there was about 450 local Jews living in Hong Kong, which is very interesting. 5 Torah scrolls belonging to the ancient Jewish community of Kaifang were discovered in the so-called Thieves' Market of Cat Street, Lesker Row, quarter of Shengguan district, in 1974. Today, these scrolls are kept in Ohel Leah Synagogue. In 1984, the Jewish Historical Society of Hong Kong was founded in the Jewish Club to study history of the Jews of China. A year later, the Israeli Consul General in Hong Kong, and McHugh, was officially appointed, and Israel formally established diplomatic relations with China in 1992. We're talking about 33 years ago, which was very, very interesting at that point in time. Now let's continue a bit more. I think it was in the late 1980s, someone of them, an American rabbi, Rabbi Samuel Joseph, arrived in Hong Kong and became the first head of the United Jewish Congregation at Hong Kong. At that time, the community did not yet have its own premises, and meetings were held at the American Club or the China Fleet Club, or British Carry On. And I think it was in 1989, let's say the members of Ohaleya and the Jewish Club, 39% Americans, 27% British, including residents of the colony, and 17% were Israelis. I think in 1991 the Carmel Jewish Day School was founded, and it was located, I think, in the east wing of the British Military Hospital in the mid-levels. And I think in the first half of the 1990s, 1,500 Jews lived in Hong Kong, of which 1,000 would participate in the life of the community. According to the Museum of Jewish People, on the eve of the transfer of Hong Kong to the People's Republic of China in 1997, around 2,500 Jewish people lived in the colony, 2/3 of whom were Americans and Israelis, while according to American Jewish Yearbook, somewhere between 3,000 to 6,000 Jews lived in Hong Kong in 1997. The composition of the Jewish community had also shifted from predominantly Baghdadi and Western European Jewish population to American population. British and Israeli mix there was. According to the 1989 Hong Kong Community Profile Survey, only 3% of Hong Kong Jewish and Cantonese are primarily native language, mostly Chinese women who converted to Judaism for marriage. Remember, they might not be halakhic Jewish, I'm not too sure. I don't know enough about it. And while only 7% had learned Cantonese as a second language, 9% of the survey of respondents spoke Mandarin in the second language form. We had to point out over there. So it's interesting. I think a couple of the year 1995 it was, a large community centre was built next to the Ohaleya Synagogue, and that replaced Old Jewish Club. And the United Jewish Congregation of Hong Kong moved its centre, reported over. After which I think there was various different ceremonies. They would begin to be held in the auditorium at the centre. And yeah, very interesting. I'm not too sure if these were all Orthodox synagogues. I think there was also conservative and reform communities also, we have to point out, in the area. Now I think from 1996 to October 1998, the Ohaleya Synagogue underwent major renovation due to significant wear and tear over nearly a century. And the restoration project was one of the outstanding project awards in 2000 of the UNESCO Asia Pacific Heritage Awards. That's what's reported over. So very, very interesting. Okay, now let's explore a bit about 21st century Hong Kong over here. This is a part 2 of the series we're doing in Hong Kong. Remember, we spoke about Japan and we spoke about China already this week. So now this is we're speaking again here with regards to Hong Kong again. Now I think come on the 21st century, about 5,000 Jews would live in Hong Kong. I think there were 7 congregations there was at that point in time. There was a Hasidic Chabad had a branch in Hong Kong, I think, in Kowloon and also in Lantau. There was a Sephardic Orthodox congregation called Kehillat Zion, a Shuvu Israel synagogue in Hong Kong also. I think there was also a Reform United Jewish congregation also that was based in Hong Kong, we have to point out. Now most of the Jews are concentrated on the Hong Kong island, where let's say this Jewish public life, it's situated mostly in mid-levels, central and Admiralty districts. However, there's also Jewish residents in the new territories and Kowloon, mostly in Smi Sha Tsui and in East Tsim Sha Tsui districts. I think there's immigrants from the USA and Canada predominant, and immigrants from Western Europe, from Great Britain, from France, from Spain and Switzerland, Israel, South Africa, Australia and New Zealand. So you can see very diverse countries over here from all walks of life. And the expatriates work in Hong Kong, businesses, managers, skilled professionals, journalists, teachers and professors. Most of the Jews actually speak Hebrew or English, and a very small number of them speak Cantonese or Mandarin. So that's something we have to point out over here. According to the World Jewish Congress, 2,500 Jews live in Hong Kong in 2015, while according to the Jewish Historical Society of Hong Kong, the number is closer to 5,000. Remember, if the number's 5,000, we don't know if they're all halachically Jewish or not, according to Jewish law. That's something I have to point out there because there are Reform communities there also, so I'm not too sure on that figure. As of 2019, about 5,000 Jews live in Hong Kong. So obviously the community itself has grown over the time period itself. So I'm just using Wikipedia over here as a source of this. I don't know if the accuracy within regards to this. Now, the most important cluster where the Jews of Hong Kong gather is, I think, Robinson Road in the mid-levels. I think it was built in 1995. There's a Jewish community centre located there, which includes a library, apparently a Chinese Jewish archive, a learning centre, a multi-purpose auditorium. There's an indoor pool. They've got a gym. They've got a kosher meat and dairy restaurant there, and a cafe and a kosher grocery store. And they've also got the historic Oheleya synagogue with Hong Kong's only ritual bath, a mikveh, as we call it over here. And I think the Consulate General of Israel is located in the second tower of this admiratory centre office complex on the Harcourt Road in the admiratory district that reports over. So there's modern, let's say, significant members of the Jewish community of Hong Kong. Someone named Michael Kadoorie, he's the son of Lawrence Kadoorie, the chairman and the co-owner of the CLP Group, Hong Kong and Shanghai hotels, and the Metrojet Airlines, and members of the board of directors of CK Hutchinson Holdings. Another key figure, prominent person in Hong Kong is someone named Alan Zeman. He's a restaurateur, he's a hotelier, he's got hotels, he's a property developer, and he's a member of the board of directors of the gambling group of Wynn Resorts, also known as the father of Hong Kong's Lan Kwai Fong Entertainment District, also had to point out. Now, let's explore a bit within regards to religious life in Hong Kong at the moment. What's the fabric like over there? Now, thankfully in Hong Kong, Jewish people can practice freely their religion, the holidays, including Shabbat meals. They can celebrate the Jewish holidays in style, Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah, Chanukah, which we happen to be on the moment, Shavuot, Pesach, Sukkot, and they develop religious educational programs also. Hong Kong, reported over, has 4 active synagogues, 3 of which have full-time rabbis. There's a Jewish school called the Carmel School for young children, 2 Sunday schools, the Ezekiel Abraham School for teenagers, and the Shurashim, the school for children. And they've got a Jewish cemetery in the Happy Valley area. The main synagogue is Oheleya, built in 1901 to 1902. And I think it was formerly aligned to modern Orthodox Judaism. The synagogue is visited by Chabad Hasidim sometimes, and I think there's also Reform and Conservative communities, also we have to point out, in Hong Kong. The Jewish Community Centre is home to the United Jewish Congregation of Hong Kong, which caters about 500 people who belong to the heterodox currents of Judaism. So it's let's just say very more on the liberal side. Let's say it was founded in 1988. The congregation was closely associated with the Jerusalem-based World Union of Progressive Judaism over here. Now, the Sephardic congregation of Shuva Yisrael is located in a Fortune House in Central District. It provides restaurants, offices with kosher food, services, synagogue services, adult and children programs, education ones, provides other services. There's residence for tourists also. There's a synagogue, there's a study hall, there's a library, there's a restaurant. And there's a grocery, kosher grocery over there, which occupies 2 floors, and a community office. And I think there's 10 families in the congregation have their own preschool or cheder, as I say, in the Pok Fulam area in itself, respectively. So there is Jewish life over there. There's also a Jewish cemetery we have to point out. What is that? The Hong Kong Jewish Cemetery is located in the Happy Valley district. I believe it was founded in the year 1855. Thanks to donations from British businessman David Sassoon, who we mentioned about before. And the cemetery is surrounded on all sides by high-rise residential buildings. It is accessible along the narrow passages in between, let's say, a Buddhist temple and a school attached to it. This is one of the few Jewish cemeteries in the Far East and have been preserved in the original location. Friends, anyone tuning in live, please subscribe to the channel. We're nearing 8,000 subscribers here as we're exploring the history of the Jewish community of Hong Kong. So please don't forget. Now, the cemetery is orientated from east to west, and most of the graves are located at the western entrance. The oldest grave is dated from 1857, and the funeral lists indicate that most of the dead in the early years of the cemetery were men. Some at a time, it was not customary for travelers to settle in Hong Kong with their families. 16 of the oldest graves do not bear the names of those buried there, only identification numbers. Now, I think the Sephardic graves in the late 19th century are grouped in the eastern part of the cemetery, and more Ashkenazi graves of their community are grounds in the western behind the chapel. The chapel itself and other small buildings appeared at the beginning of the 20th century during the rule of Jewish governor Matthew Nathan, who we spoke about before. Very, very interesting enough. So, and I think it was in 1904, a 75-year lease was signed on a piece of land adjacent to the cemetery. And in 1979, it was extended for another 75 years. The cemetery is dominated by simple graves. There's to say in itself, the Sephardic Belios family built white marble canopies in iconic style over their graves, and the Kaduri and Gubai families, whose graves are located together, prefer tombstones with narrow polished granite in a sarcophagy covered with protruding lids. Often tombstones are decorated with various elements, flowers, swirls, and other things. Also, one grave, so very, very interesting. Let's speak about the education of Hong Kong in itself. Jewish schooling has historically not been very strong in Hong Kong. 1914, I think there was a report that there was no religious schools in Hong Kong at the time. 1936, there was a small school had opened. And there was a lack of interest, I think, of parents for their kids to learn Hebrew at the time. In 1969, Ezekiel Abraham School was founded as a volunteer-run Sunday school. And there had also been, I think, no attempts to set up a Jewish day school in Hong Kong due to the small number of Jewish children. However, in the early 1990s, Carmel School became Hong Kong's first Jewish day school with 30 original students. A few years after opening, they had more than 50 applications for preschool enrollment itself. Very interesting stuff. Now, as of 2022, I think it was the Carmel School Association had 3 campuses: Holy Roth Early Learning Center, the Carmel Elementary School, and the Elsa High School in Chiu Kei Wan, which had 50 non-Jewish students. The Elsa High School includes, let's say, laboratories, a library, a music, arts, and design classrooms, a 500-seat auditorium, a conference, and fitted rooms, all-weather artificial turf field, and the Jewish Community Center, located in the mid-levels area of Robinson Road, operates the Holy Rofe Early Learning Center and includes an indoor pool, a gym and playgrounds. And Carmel Elementary and Preschool is located in the mid-levels on the Borat Road, on the place of a former British military hospital which opened in 1907. In 1967, the hospital was moved to Kowloon, and the military turned over the empty buildings to the colonial government. And in the early 1990s, the east wing of the former hospital was, let's say, occupied by the Carmel School, which provided religious and secular education according, let's say, to modern Orthodox Judaism they would practice. And the school has library, art classes, computer science, programming classes, special education classes, indoor gym, and very, very interesting. I think in 1999, the Union Jewish Congregation of Hong Kong opened its own school called the Shorashim School also. And in 2010, a local branch of Israel Boy and Girl Scouts Federation was opened in Hong Kong. So I don't think these were necessarily, let's say, religious organizations itself. Let's speak about the Kehilat Sion Synagogue, a Sephardi synagogue, which is based in the Sheheba Center over here. And they're very much associated with Sheheber, the Sephardic Center rabbinic program. And it's interesting about SSC, the Sheheber Sephardic Center program. They have a policy of spreading, let's say, glorious heritage around the world, catering to needs of communities, especially under the flagship over the years of Ross Sam Kassim and Rabbi Eliyahu Shamula of the center. They opened a Syrian Beit Knesset synagogue in the Kowloon side of Hong Kong in 2007. The synagogue, I think, was very much conveniently located near all major hotels, just minutes away from Shanghai region and peninsula hotels. So it was let's say, a key area for people doing business. I think they trained, the SSC would train Rabbi Netanel Odad as the spiritual leader of the Heichel Ezra Kehilat Sion Synagogue of Kowloon, obviously located on Mordi Road, is serving the local Jewish community. The synagogue, let's say, is home to thousands of Jewish businessmen and tourists during their stays in Hong Kong. The synagogue has daily minyan and kosher food, respectively, which is very interesting. So I think Rabbi Netanel Moaddad, along with his wife, runs the synagogue and is actively involved in the daily operations of the community. Rabbi Moaddad is warm and friendly individual who is conversant with all the customs and traditions of the local community, and he's pleased to assist, I think, people. They provide tefillah services, definitely on Shabbat morning, they have kiddush and meals, there's mincha and arvit, especially there's a Sunday shacharit report over, and other services and events for festivals. So I'm not too sure if there's a daily 3 services a day. I'd assume probably there is, but you'll have to double check on that. Anyone's going there. Anyone tuning in live, welcome to our community. We are exploring the history of the Jewish community of Hong Kong on a special edition here on the 4th day of the Jewish Festival of Hanukkah. So welcome everyone and enjoy. Now the Ohel Leah Synagogue. This is a Jewish congregation and synagogue located at the junction of Robinson Road and Castle Road, I think in mid-levels of Hong Kong in the island. I think it's adjacent, as I said before, to the Jewish Recreation Club and the Jewish Community Centre. The synagogue and associated facilities have formed the centre of Jewish school and religious life in Hong Kong since its establishment in 1902. Obviously, the community originally was Baghdadi Sephardic Jews and was under the superintendence of the Chacham of the Spanish-Portuguese Congregation of London. And so it just shows the important position that the Chacham of S&P had. The congregation, I think, is now fully independent as members across the Jewish diaspora, we have to point out. Now, I think most of Hong Kong's Jews live a short distance away from the synagogue. I think the British colonial Edwardian architecture, the 2-storied, whitewashed, multi-turret synagogue nestles, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. It's said over here just in Wikipedia. The name Ohel Leah commemorates Leah Sassoon, the mother of the Sassoon brothers, Jacob, Edward and May, who donated land for building synagogues. The Sassoons were among the earliest Sephardic merchants from India to settle in Hong Kong. Ohel Leah is a modern Orthodox synagogue, reported over here, and its first officially appointed rabbi was in 1961. 3 other Jewish congregations have also emerged more recently in Hong Kong. There's a Sephardic, which is dominated by Israeli. There's a Chabad Lubavitch, and the Union Jewish congregation I was before is aligned with Reform Conservative. Many worshippers, let's say, have memberships in several congregations you have to worry about. And there was later on there was conversions, conservations done in the historic synagogue. It's listed as a Grade 1 historic building in June 1987, and by December 1987 the listing was voluntarily removed, as there was, I think, a talk of demolishing the building. So I'm not sure what happened afterwards, but it's definitely currently running at the moment, we have to point out. So we've spoken about how Hong Kong, the vibrant Jewish community, even albeit it's small, it mirrors the growth of the city as a generalist, as we can say over here. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Hong Kong, obviously a special administrative region of the People's Republic of China, boasts over 7 million residents. Only about 5,000 of these residents, we have to point out, are Jewish. So obviously dating back from 1840, you can see what they've contributed all throughout time. And we spoke about how there was a Jewish dynasty across the East. Baghdad was traditionally, we spoke about how it was a thriving Jewish community that traced its roots to destruction of the first Beit HaMikdash. And we spoke all about Sassoon philanthropist dynasty. Let's see, who were treasurers, the governors of Baghdad. And we spoke about how David Sassoon, 1826, would leave, I think, left the position as treasurer and moved his family first to Persia and on to India, and became a major trader. We spoke about in buying and selling riches of East silk, cotton, tea, silver, opium. And he was also an Orthodox Jewish person and a major philanthropist. He also built synagogues in Bombay, in Pune in India, and also funded schools and hospitals throughout Asia. Also, we pointed out. So, and how they built Hong Kong in of itself when it was handed to Britain in 1842. We spoke about, and Arthur Sassoon, David Sassoon's son, would join the Provisional Committee to establish what became Hong Kong and Shanghai Banking Corporation, which obviously lended funds, turning Hong Kong into one of the world's greatest banking hubs, as we spoke about already in the previous class, just a little recap. And we spoke about how Arthur's brothers Frederick Sassoon served on the Hong Kong's Legislative Council in 1880s, and I think in 1904 to 1907 Hong Kong had a Jewish governor at the time, Matthew Nathan, who helped develop the Kowloon area. So you can see so many important things that this family has done. And we spoke about how about the earliest Jewish establishment in Hong Kong was formed in the year 1885, and the cemetery was built, and so on and so forth. So I think the first grave of Hong Kong actually is named Leon bin Burrell, which dates back to 1857, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe. And we spoke about Matthew Nathan, who was actually British and became an engineer, eventually entered the British civil service and was sent to Hong Kong, where it was a very swampy area at the time of Kowloon, and he really built it up tremendously. And I think Judy Green, who was the chairman of the Jewish Historical Society of Hong Kong, explained that her husband's grandfather actually would remember Mr. Nathan walking around Kowloon in, let's say, gumboots, because it was like more of a swamp at that point in time. And Nathan decided that for Kowloon to flourish, it needed an access road to link it, let's say, to the hinterland of the new territories. Many thought he was making a mistake at the time, but he was obviously very determined to push the project through in of itself. So yeah, and we spoke about Lawrence and Horace Kadoorie, who were known for decades for their philanthropy, also respectively, and how the Kadoorie family was from Iraq, and the Sassoons would move to India and then to Hong Kong, and we spoke all about that. And obviously their father, Eli Kadoorie, which we mentioned about, arrived in Hong Kong in 1880 at the age of 15 to work with the Sassoons companies, and would eventually join his brother Ellis, and the two invested in hotels in Hong Kong and Shanghai, and the famous Peninsula Hotel. So that we already spoke about also. So let's speak a bit more about there's a synagogue called Bet. Yeah, it's very interesting. Let's speak about another rabbi that was key, I believe, in Hong Kong for the Sephardic community over here. This was, I think, he would actually leave, I think, in 2010, if I'm not mistaken. His name was Rabbi Shlomo Meir El-Hara. He was a key rabbi, I think, in Hong Kong in his time before 2010, and then I think later on it was in around 2011, if I'm not mistaken, he would actually join, I think, the Bet El synagogue. Remember, Rav El-Hara was actually born in Jerusalem and is also a mohel and authorized to do kosher slaughter. And I think Rabbi El-Hara would also work in South America, if I'm not mistaken, in Colombia. And I think he actually works in King Solomon Foundation, which works to strengthen and grow the Jewish community through engaging with larger local Jewish community via tzedakah, charity, and visiting the sick. And his wife, I think, is Rabbanit Orly El-Hara, is head of both the sisterhood and the mikveh, the spiritual bath in himself. Now he's the rabbi of a New York established synagogue, Bet El, if I'm not mistaken, over there. And Bet El would reopen in 2011. I think it's based on Myrtle Beach, if I'm not mistaken. It was closed, I think, from 1986. This synagogue was, but reopened in 2011. And Rabbi El-Hara will take the realm at that window in time. Another key rabbi that there was in Hong Kong, who we have to point out, is Rabbi Asher and Dr. Rachel Osser. Who are they? So I think Rabbi Osser was ordained at the Rabbi Isaac Elchanan Theological Seminary, Yeshiva University. This was where he was, let's say, a Wexner Graduate Fellow, and prior to ordination, he studied at Yeshivat Kol Torah in Jerusalem, and Yeshivat Har Etzion in the Gush. He holds a BA, a degree, from the University of Sydney, and an MA from the McGill University, and also a PhD in modern Jewish history from Yeshiva University. And the title of his doctoral dissertation is When an American Jew Produced, Judah David Einstein, and the first Hebrew encyclopedia. He has contributed articles to Encyclopedia Judaica. Rabbi Ozer was a rabbinic intern also, I think, at Manhattan's congregation, if I'm not mistaken, at Deret El Stern for women, and Park East Synagogue, if I'm not mistaken. So very decorated. He'll become a key rabbi also in Hong Kong at a later stage. Now, another rabbi, famous rabbi, is Rabbi Yehuda Ari Azankot. He graduated from the Sheba, the SSC, Sephardic Center, in 1987. Now, I think he's currently the head of Congregation Bet Torah in Brooklyn, in New York, where he leads a congregation of more than 1,200 families. Let me see. He was at one stage in time Rabbi Azankot, a rabbi in Hong Kong, as we pointed out. He was also a head rabbi in Brooklyn, I think also in various congregations in Barcelona, in Spain, in Bogota, in Colombia. He was instrumental in establishing, I think, firm Jewish connections with, let's say, many families. He escalated, let's say, the level of observance for many families. I think in Bogota, for example, he worked together with a Chabad rabbi and was a visionary behind the establishment of a kollel, a kosher kitchen, and local hotels. And he created a strong educational experience for the youth. And I think there was, an SAM Flight 501 plane crash in May 20, 1903. And Rabbi Azankot was instrumental in raising money to organize flights to the mountain. He used helicopters and ropes to collect all 132 bodies before separating them by faith, so that all 35 Jewish people on the board of the plane could have a proper Jewish burial. But I think he was also a rabbi in Hong Kong. If I'm not mistaken, it could be that rabbi, the current chief rabbi of the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth, Rabbi Ephraim Mervis, was a rabbi also one window of time of Hong Kong, but that I'm not too sure about over there, or had some connection within regards to that. So that's also another very interesting tidbit we have to point out. So friends, over here we try to, there's more rabbis we could have maybe spoken about over here. We could have spoken maybe a bit more within regards to Hong Kong Jewish community. I think we've got a good gist and a good breadth within regards to the community and the history in of itself over here in this special edition over here. And everyone recording this here at the time of the Jewish festival of Hanukkah. We happen to be a festival of lights over here, and very interesting. I recommend everyone please to subscribe to the channel and join our community, as we've got fantastic content over here. We are exploring the history of all the countries in the world, the Jewish communities in those locales. That's something we have to point out. We've already spoken about here on this series about a staggering nearly 40 countries we've spoken about, and we're really going from strength to strength, which is amazing. So wishing you all well. Please subscribe to the channel and join the community, and let's learn more about our heritage. So very, very interesting, and wishing you all a great day. And please subscribe to the channel. Thanks.